Okay, I don't know who I'm going to be talking to at Tesla, but whoever opens this video, and I put it on YouTube as a private video because that way anybody with a link can see it. Yeah, my background, I'm a New Zealander, born in 1948. I went to Christchurch University, then Victoria University, a couple of years of science, and then I took off to Australia for 3 years. Then I went back to university in New Zealand, and I did a double major in accounting and economics. Although all of my previous studies have been science, physics, math, chemistry, etc. Chemistry, I was really a star. I was just really, really, really good at chemistry. And that's been with me all my life. I've been really good at music too, but there's no money in music or chemistry back then, certainly in New Zealand. And so here I am in America. How did I get here? Well, when I left university in 1974, I went out to work for a company that rented out accountants, and they wanted people with degrees, so I went out and did that. And I finished up working for a company, Lazar Russell Limited, and I discovered I was a forensic accountant. I could look at companies, and after a few weeks, I could figure out where all of the pieces were, and exactly which pieces weren't fitting together, and where they were losing money, and why they were losing money, and fix the thing as a result. So I worked for Lazar Russell Limited for 6 months, just as a consultant. They offered me the job of financial controller. I said no, because these guys wouldn't listen. I told them how to fix their problem. Yeah, it's a longer story. We've got a lot to cover. Anyhow, after 6 months, one of the big four were appointed as receivers, because this was going to be the second biggest bust in New Zealand that year, a year for big busts, and the biggest was a bank going down, which doesn't happen in New Zealand. So anyhow, here I was, and the receivers come in, and I bounce across them the things I've discovered and things that they could change and things that, and they listened, and their jaws dropped, and they said, do it instantly. Yeah, it would have saved the boys if they had understood what I was raving on about, but they didn't. And when I left that job after 6 months, when they had completely liquidated the company, I left with glowing references from two of the senior partners as one of the big four accounting firms, which is great. So back to Australia, and I worked, the job that changed my life was working for Computer Resources in Sydney, Australia's largest Australian-owned computer company, and they were into micrographics. They were into, so that's original film and duplicate film. They had the banks, they had the government, they had everybody. More people were using microfiche in Australia than any other country in the world, and that was because we had amazing salespeople and all that good stuff. They had Jacquard word processing, the first of the word processors, sold them to attorneys, because when they realized that they could have boilerplates on file, nobody had to retype them, just pump them out on a word processing printer, all is good. And they ran a mainframe bureau in the building as well. They ran a bunch of different businesses out of there. They had a computer leasing division. So that was the last one that I got round to and was cleaning up. And I found them huge chunks of money that they didn't realize. They don't track things properly. They don't think in double entry bookkeeping terms. And, and it's like, anyhow. I was at the leasing division, and IBM had released the 4300 series, which had obsoleted all the System 370s. They were a fraction of the price. But the old things that kept value were disk drives, tape drives, things like that. So I was going through their inventory to see what they had. And I got this call from John Greenlees at Trans-Austral Shipping, one of the big shipping companies in the world. And he said, Rich, where can I get a word processing printer for IBM System 34? And I said, what the fuck is a 34? So I did my homework, and I discovered there's about 400 or 500 of them in Australia at that time. but there were 80,000 in the United States, right? So it's like, holy shit, I never heard of this box. It could be put in an office. Didn't need any extra air conditioning. It was the first real office computer. And there's a whole story there. Anyhow, so one of my connections, because the leasing company did a lot of very, very big deals, and IBM wanted to know what was going on. So we had very good relations with IBM. One of my buddies, Rod McKinley, who was a director for industrial and public relations at IBM, I called Rod and I says, how do I get a manual for the protocols that you talk from the System 34 to one of your peripherals, printer, workstation, whatever? And he says, well, you'll have to send me a letter that asks for this particular manual. And he gave me the title, word for word, and I had to write a letter. Because as part of the antitrust settlement, IBM agreed to publish everything, but they didn't agree to put them all in their catalog, right? So if you're a friend and somebody who they figure honorable and trustworthy, they'll help you. So they helped me. So I asked for that, and I got back this amazing document, and I took it down to Andy Mowat, Jonathan Holgate at MicroPro Design, Sydney, big city, 4 million people. I mean, everything was there. We even had people in mid-70s designing microprocessor-based things when we had Rockwell 1 megabit chips. 1 megahertz chips as processors. I mean, screaming fast. 1 megahertz, we could get double speed, which is 2 megahertz. Well, this fucking line ran at 1 megahertz, right? And if you look at the signal, to get a signal down a mile of cable, you have to put a kicker in at the front end, because what you're detecting further down the cable is an analog signal. And if you kick the front end of that signal, then when you get a mile down the cable, you've still got a steep enough rise to be able to use a Schmidt trigger to detect the signal. And so it's like, so lots of fucking around. Sat with Jonathan and Andrew and this one, and this was ancillary to their business. They've been doing a lot of stuff for us with Jacquard word processing, because they had to build us a printer interface for that. That was what gave me the idea of getting them involved. And they started just working on this thing. No money commitment. Group managing director said, yeah, why not? It's costing us nothing. Let's look at it. John Fox, who headed the leasing division, said, no, never been done in Australia. It'd be done in America or Japan first, right? Well, a year later, right, John Fox got a call from John Greenlees. I was out of the office, and he said, hey, how's that printer thing coming? And John said to me, John got a hold of me after that and said, are you still fucking around with that printer thing? I said, yeah. And he said, drop it, or leave and take it with you. The group managing directors out of the country, John figured, well, I get paid too much money, right? So I'm going to just drop it and march away. I said, I'll give you an answer tomorrow. He said, what an answer now? You can't have an answer now. I'll give you an answer tomorrow. I gave him an answer the next day, and I said, yeah, I'm leaving and taking it with me. I had $400 in the bank at that time. Yeah, I was young, dumb, full of cum, like spending money, made good money. But it was just, there's always so much stuff to do in Sydney. It's an exciting fucking town. Anyhow. And it sort of growed from there. So 1978, I started shipping these things, getting them built into printers. I'd sit with Jonathan and Andrew, figure out how to do this, how to do a control panel. We had to be able to put a control panel on the load, because anyhow, we had to build control panels, cut the cases, all that sort of shit. And people got these things and they loved them. And of course, there's bugs everywhere, but you chase the bugs fast. That's always the key. People will forgive you if you're doing a brilliant job and you really jump when they need help. And IBM customers, Christ, IBM was the most credible company in the world back then, right? So competing with IBM, it's like, you must be fucking touched, right? Anyhow, IBM didn't give me a lot of flack. And I wasn't eating their lunch. I wasn't, And so we brought out a dot matrix printer and then a high-speed dot matrix printer and sort of got ourselves became a national company with maintenance in 6 cities. Wow, Now I knew we led the world in technology. I knew that American companies would catch up sooner or later. Yeah, they lumber along. And some executive would make the decision to come to Australia and just crush us or lowball the company and steal the products and incorporate them in. Arrogant motherfuckers. Yes, I had experience then with American companies. So I said, we got to go to America. So I actually first looked at American market in 81. And this is before venture capital or anything. I'm sort of winging it. Winging a prayer. I mean, it's craziness. So anyhow, in 83, I bit the bullet, right? Came to the United States, had about $100,000 worth of boards and inventory, and was going to do a deal, partnership, or a company in Minneapolis that had lots and lots of engineering skills. And that they just presented me with all these other, conditions that I just couldn't live with. Like green as grass, dumb as a fucking rock, know nothing about America. What was I doing here? Really? I said, I can't live with this. So I'm in Minneapolis. All of the gear is sitting in customs in San Francisco. And I didn't do the release or anything else to get it to Minneapolis because I just wasn't comfortable. So I said, nah, I'm going back to San Francisco. So I came back to San Francisco, and that's where it just got started. I rented office space and just on a wing and a prayer built a national company in the United States with maintenance in 600 cities. Yeah, if you're going to sell hardware, it's got to be fabulously maintained. It's got to be really, really reliable. And IBM customers are demanding because you're competing against IBM and their service standards then were just amazing. So, yeah, and eventually IBM became our maintenance company. Yeah, we just subcontracted everything in maintenance. But we took the calls because we knew the architecture and how this equipment worked. We could diagnose the problem. When we went to send IBM out on a call, we would make sure that the equipment that they were going to need was on site before they went out on the call. They could call us. We'd walk them through what they had to do on the call and make heroes of them in there, fixed out. IBM engineers loved us too. Yeah. And it's like, I went out on calls myself when nobody else could solve the problem. Who did we have as customers? Some 6,000 corporates across the United States. Nice specialized market. Hang on. I have another phone here, and it's making noises at me. Yeah. I just bought a Nokia phone. Yeah, I just want to see what Nokia is doing with this. Oh. I'm going to pause you for a second. I think we're still recording. Anyhow, okay. So 1978 and 1996, I was building this global company. We had signed up a distributor in Germany, and he took care of our European market. Love the Germans. They work so hard. They get a good grasp on what they're doing. They love knowledge. I went over and blew the doors off my German distributors because they'd wheel out these expert engineers, right? And little maxim I have, you can't manage what you don't understand, right? An American industry does not understand the top end, top echelon. They understand banking. They have kind of a grasp on marketing and sales. But, MBAs, useless bunch of pricks. Anyhow, this is not for publication, by the way. I don't want this out in everybody else's hands. So what happens in 1996? I go to hospital, first time in my life, right? It's like, wow, and it was because my doctor negligence. That's the whole story itself. But anyhow, I discovered when I was in hospital that I had HIV and my T cell count was through the floor. I discovered that I got it from my partner. Wow. And I immediately, with a life expectancy of 18 months, so I immediately retired. My 18 years of building my global company, my house in Livermore, 1876 Altair Avenue. Look it up on Zillow. It's still there in Livermore. It was 6 months old when I bought it. 4,300 square feet on half an acre. I was making about $230,000 a year through that whole period just in cash money coming in. Right? So I was very comfortable. And when you get very sick in America, the first thing they do is make sure that they reduce you to poverty. So since then, right, I've basically got to the point now, like one of the drugs I take is $50,000 a year. If I had an income sufficient, if I had, say, a $100,000 a year income, they'd want $50,000 to pay for the drugs. You know, it's just a nut system. So I live on Social Security. And what you're looking at here around me, it's the Elon Musk approach, right? You can look at me and say, Rich, you're 73. You look like you're in fairly good health. Yeah. I've given you enough background on me. Yes. Metabolic chemistry. When I first came to the States, I was at a Christmas party. I've been here 4 months or so. At a Christmas party, and I heard this guy holding forth on metabolic concepts that I had never heard voiced anywhere. I discovered, I'll call him Mr. X. He was coaching 2 Nobel laureates at the time who thought he was the smartest thing they had ever met. They introduced him to their friends, and Mr. X would sign them to non-disclosure agreements, and they could not disclose without his permission unless the actual stuff had been published independently. And it never has been. Cure for type 2 diabetes. All of these things. But anyhow, we have spoken for thousands of hours because one of the things about new ideas, new concepts, is you have to talk them through. And if you're talking metabolic chemistry, which is just this morass of things, and Mr. X could just target through into things that were astonishing. You want a cure for arthritis? I got a cream around here somewhere you just rub on and no more pain. Yep, one of his. And he already had that in 83. Right? Now, today he's got cancer. So what am I going to do if I come to SpaceX? What would I like to do? I would like to be involved in developing a metabolic unit for SpaceX and Tesla. First of all, optimize people's own metabolism and do it in a practical, intelligent way that helps people be the best that they can be. And it's not, you're in the army now, you have to do it my way. You just do it. When the logic appeals to you and you understand this is going to make a huge difference to your life, it gets pretty obvious. So, if we don't do that, then when you go to Mars, say in 2028, everybody dies. Because the metabolic concepts that you're going to take with you, you're not going to be resupplied every 3 months from Earth or every 2 months or 1 month from Earth. You're going to go there with what you've fucking got. And if you don't get it right, and you think that, oh, we're just going to have these plants and so on, no, you're missing just a huge area of metabolic chemistry that needs to be carefully researched. Why am I interested? I'm 73 years old. In the next 5 years, we're going to see the first real rejuvenation chemistry appearing in the literature. And it's not going to be, here's a proprietary drug. The American pharmaceutical model is dead. It's as dead as the American automobile manufacturing model, right? It's being replaced by Tesla and the Love Joe Justice. Yeah, he's done wonders for getting the word out about how brilliant you guys are and the dedication you have to what you're doing and how intelligently you think and approach problems. Um, got to get that same kind of thing into metabolic science, right? Chinese and Japanese are going to lead this field because they have a huge stake in this game. America, if you're going to have 80-year-old geriatric lawyers, I mean, guys who don't focus on metabolic wellness. I mean, Alzheimer's has been cured since 2013. Dale Bredesen and the Bredesen Protocol have been pulling people out of Alzheimer's for 9 years plus. And the groundwork was there before that. Yeah? Back in 1998, I was in New Zealand for a family reunion, the first ever. It was my 50th birthday. And my sister Cynthia told me she had Parkinson's. And I said to her, how about I connect your doctor with some people in America who really know what's going on? She said, oh dear, my doctor is wonderful. He's brilliant. It's just like, oh, he knows everybody. Well, she's dead. And apparently her last 8 years were just awful. But I've learned everybody finds their own way to heaven. And if they have to go in a particular way and they choose that path, it's not my job to second guess them or regret the path they chose. It's a lesson. People teach me lessons all the time. So, there's going to be, everybody going to Mars doesn't need to be dead, right? 2, full self-driving. You've got to school NHTSA. First of all, you've got cameras in every fucking car. Why aren't you taking photographs of these impossible? I mean, all these full self-driving fools are sort of like, oh, well, let's go navigate these cones and so on. That are just like, excuse me? What are you thinking? Yeah. What I would do is disqualify those roads. Just disqualify them. Take them out of the maps and you'll go back and inspect them and you get people who are using full self-driving to go back every now and again and just drive through there and see if you can open it up again. Second, road surfaces in America are going to hell in a handbasket, particularly California. California is just sucking so much money out of the pockets of the productive people and pissing it away on government bureaucracy that to say just like, oh, well, you know, we're not going to use these roads. And you publish a list of all the roads that are unacceptable, right? Obviously, this is take your time, work through it, get this as a coherent policy, and then you can go to NHTSA and say, look, we're going to catalog all these roads, and what role do you want to play in this? And, you know, it's like, because these are roads that are unsafe, we consider they're unsafe for a car that's 10 times as safe as a human being to be driving on. Yeah, so we're going to disqualify them. They're not roads anymore, right? Or they can only be navigated by people at the wheel driving the vehicle. That would create havoc across America. There would be some real push to get infrastructure fixed. Yeah. I get a whole bunch of ideas. I mean, I'm just shooting this fucking video for the sake of shooting a video. You're probably looking at me and saying, Rich, you look like you might be in quite good health. It's like, yes, that prediction 1996 that I'd be dead in 18 months, or median time expiry, 18 months, it might last 24. It was a turning point. It was a turning point. Things in life have turning points. Now that I live on Social Security, you've got to look at this logically, and Elon will understand this perfectly. I can pay $1,000 a month rent and $200 for utilities, and sometimes it'd be $300, and out of my $1,600 approximately of Social Security, I'm going to have about $400 left for gas, car repairs, registration, $130. $6 a gallon gas, all this other shit. And it just look at this and say, I can't afford to pay rent. I can't afford to pay $200 a month utilities. So what you're looking at now is my home. This is my automobile. This is a Honda Civic, right? And the passenger seat there, that's my bed, right? Which has, my phones and various, electronics and things that I mess around with. I've got a laptop and I've got all the things I need, essential. I've got everything else in storage. Excuse me while I get this back up again. And yes, I get to the gym. I scare boys. Yeah, like scaring boys. They love being scared too. Yeah, actually, I don't scare them at all. Yeah, I come up and say, how old are you? When I tell them 73, they go, oh, my grandpa's 73? It's like, yeah, cool, huh? I bet he looks like me. Yeah? They say, no, he doesn't. So that's sweet. It's like America's got to start looking after its boys better. Really. Everything is sort of, if you're a woke transsexual, it's like, the world is your oyster. But if you're unfortunate enough to be a straight boy, just trying to get along in the world because you want to have a girl and you want to get married and you want to have babies, and well, that doesn't seem to be happening too much anymore, does it? So, we got a lot to fix. I've been the legal side too. I was fucked over by the city of Fremont in a spectacular way. People who read the case are just horrified, absolutely horrified. And I look forward to horrifying you, because racketeering law, that's a place to start fighting this entrenched criminality in government. They passed the federal racketeering laws with the idea of going after criminals, people who are depriving people of their civil rights and so on. And it's like, gee, there's a lot of people in government doing that shit too. Police action, all sorts of stuff going on. Collusion between the district attorneys, judges, public defenders. When I had my problem, I just simply said, hey, I trust American justice. I'm going to get the public defender to defend me. And everybody said, don't do that. You'll fucking throw yourself under the bus. I said, no. If they throw me under the bus, one day, that will come to light. And it will help change America for the better. Yep. So, I've had an amazing life so far. And now I'm preparing to live for the next few thousand years in a 29-year-old body with some in electronic enhancements. Yeah. And being at Tesla, boy, I'm an R&D kind of beast, always develop new products on a shoestring because I had absolute certainty of what we were developing. And the guys who worked with me were the best. And I would like to perhaps present them to Tesla and see if I can persuade them to come and work with me there for a while as well. Wouldn't be forever, because they're not forever people, but massively talented. Look up Synaptic Labs. Synaptic Labs. Have a look at their products. The guy who does all the smart work there came to work for me when he was 16. Very brilliant. Working under the wing of my number one R&D guy, Mike. And I like to bring him because he's going through a sex change right now, sort of part of his midlife crisis. I don't know how far he's going to take all that, but I know he's growing some tits. But the thing is that it's fuck Twitter. Fuck Twitter. I could build something way, way better than Twitter. It won't cost you much to find out because I'm happy sleeping in my car And what I would rather sleep in would be a customized Model Y. Because then I got climate control. I can go anywhere. It costs next to nothing to run. Reliable. Yeah. I'm not looking for an income. I'm not looking for, to be grand. It's just, we are now here for a much, much, much longer time than we thought. Yeah. So my name is Richard Hamilton Gibbs. I'm on half an hour of wasted time, guys. Love you. Look forward to talking to you.